very happy that you all joined in back again for our second session for today. Action Club are going to open this session, and they're also going to host the video workshop right after this talk. I think you should all take part in it because it's really fascinating. They joined us also another group of visitors from out of this town. They joined us from New York. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, because I think they'll do a pretty good job of it. I'll just close the doors so you can get started.
Okay, thanks for your time.
All right, do we need to use this? Can you hear us if we speak like this? Yeah.
All right, great. We're both teachers, so we have booming voices. So I'm Kerry.
I'm Doug.
We're Action Club, and we are very excited to be here today. We're going to talk about some of our past projects to contextualize the work that we're doing here, and talk about power. Our work deals with groups of people and what it means to gather and what it means to collaborate.
So with that in mind, should we reconsider the space of the room?
Yes. I think one of the primary aspects of our work has to do with bodies and how bodies share space. So one thing I would like to have a quick discussion about is the room. How do you all feel about the setup right now? Any thoughts? Just sort of reactions? Any feelings?
Maybe it's hard to...
It's hot.
It's hot. Okay, it's hot. Well, my feeling is that you all are a little far away. And I wanted to make a proposal. And the proposal is something that we are going to vote on. I propose that we move the seats closer and maybe even make a little bit of a semicircle in front. But I don't want to decide for the group, so we're going to take a vote. And the vote is called a temperature check. And the temperature check involves 5 different hand signals. Do you want to tell them about the hand signals?
Go for it.
Okay, so the hand signals go like this. If you're really into the idea of this proposal of moving the chairs, big thumbs up. If you're open to it, you're positive about it, your palms up. If maybe you don't care or you're undecided, you're on the fence. If you don't feel good about it, you don't want to move, you're happy where you're at, you're going to do palms down. And if you absolutely hate the idea and you refuse to move, it's called a veto, and that's a thumbs down. So thumbs up, palms up, on fence, palms down, thumbs down. So think about it for a second. Please.
If I'm undecided about my temperature,
And you're on the fence.
I don't know, because the fence is what they said it's a certain place, but maybe I'm much higher from the fence. Maybe I'm between thumbs up and
Sure, we'll go ahead and try to make a signal in between the two. So maybe if you're in between on the fence and palms up, then maybe you'll do this. Yeah, maybe. Maybe make it up. Yeah, sure. Everything in between, make it up. So, okay. We got a vote already. 1, 2, 3 votes. Can I keep your hands up so we can see them? Okay, 2 down, 3 down. Lots up. I'm palms up. Okay. So most people are, we have palms down. Okay, so we have no vetoes, and most people are positive. So we're going to move the chairs. But I encourage those who put palms down to perhaps stay where they're seated and not move at all. And that is your choice. But the rest of you who are positive about moving, come a little closer, bring your chair, maybe a little semicircle. Just make sure you include the people who chose to be palms down.
But you were you weren't enthusiastic, and now you're very enthusiastic.
Okay, good. Come over here, come closer. And again, feel free to stay where you are. Okay, great. Thanks.
Is that better?
How does it feel?
Can see better.
Can see better.
See better? All right.
Okay. If nothing else, we at least acknowledge the room as a part of the conversation and the physicality of the room in our bodies. And so even if things didn't change substantially, maybe it did for one or two people, it's important in our practice that that's a foundation, is to think about the social space. So with that in mind, we're going to just talk for maybe 1 second about what we're doing here. Let me introduce that.
Yeah, so what we're doing here, and you'll have the chance to participate after the talk if you haven't already, or if you have already and you want to do it again, is a exercise that we call bridge. And this is something that we have started doing as teachers. And we found it to be so interesting that we bring it in almost all of the sort of group projects that we do. It's a sort of a simple game, and in this game we imagine a line, and one side of that line indicates that you feel positive about a statement, or that you would say, yes, I agree with that statement, and the other side of the line says, no, I disagree, that does not apply to me, and we make a series of statements. And everyone who says yes goes to the one side, everyone who says no goes to the other, and then we look at each other for a few moments. And what that does is that it creates this sort of space, or a social space, within which differences and similarities are confronted. And what always happens, and one of the things that makes this game so interesting, is that there are always these questions that come up that are not a simple yes and no, and that becomes a kind of collective negotiation to figure out how to locate your opinion within a really black and white proposition.
So we've basically created a false binary. Most decisions that we make are somewhere between yes and no. And so we start the game out where it's clear yes and no, but along the way, the group decides whether or not to find an alternative. And if you join us afterwards, you'll see what that looks like. But we've already done this with a few different groups here. We've played it as an impromptu game as well. And the Boy Scouts will be joining us afterwards, so I think it'll be really exciting.
So the way that Kerry and I know each other is through a really large collective that we are both part of in New York City. It's called Flux Factory. It's a really difficult one to describe in a moment, but it is part sort of open collective with literally hundreds of members. It's part residency program, and it's part nonprofit that organizes large-scale collaborative projects in New York City. So it's really a broad organization, and that's sort of how we know each other. And when dealing with like a large group of people, sort of all at the table, everyone sort of has a stake in decision making. Everyone is invited to take as much responsibility as they want in terms of like deciding, okay, well, what programming is happening? What are the sort of boundaries of our community? Thinking about the way that the structures that we collaborate is crucial. So that's what sort of brings us to these games, like yes and no, the bridge, or the fist of five. These sort of like nuanced and
this is the fist of five,
right?
Also called temperature check.
These ways of like communicating that are designed to to build consensus.
So here's just and this is just a boring image, but it's just part of being together means meeting a lot. It's not always fun, and it's sometimes extremely rigorous. So for years and years, we've been meeting every Monday night. And Doug is still a part of Flux Factory, and I'm a part of another living collective now where there are 12 of us, soon to be 17 as we move buildings. And every Monday night, we get to talk about fun things, but a lot of it is rigorous. So what does that look like? How do people get together and talk? How do we make sure that one person doesn't talk on top of another person? Well, consensus, including things like the hand signals, help group decision making. And so when Occupy came along, it was not new to us in many ways. This idea of thinking of new ways to gather. Sure, it's about collective action. Sure, it's about showing up in public space, or in this case, Occupy museums, going to public and private museums and addressing the conflicts, the power conflicts, the money issues, the imbalances of power in the museum. But a lot of what that activism looks like is boring. It means sitting and looking at each other and talking and listening. So when we started joining Occupy and everyone was sitting around going like this, I was very excited because this kind of dorky stuff that's, how many of you guys know this? Do this if you've seen this before. So this means sparkle fingers, which means you're really excited about something. So in fact, let's try it today in the talk. If there's something that we say that you really respond to, you can give one hand, two hands. If you're not into it, you can do wiggles down. It's just sort of like the octopus fingers, not into it, right? And that's a way of sort of participating without it always just being about the speaker. And there's at least some form of negotiation of the dynamic of the room.
It's a way of saying what you think without interrupting someone. So you're respecting the person who's speaking, whoever it is in the room, but you're also saying, I totally agree. I totally disagree. So so in addition to our being part of Flux Factory and working together, Kerry and I are both part of other collectives. We both have really sort of expansive collaborative practices. Action Club itself is really vague in a way about who's involved and who's not. So anyway, we think about this stuff all the time, the mechanics of working together, and we did a sort of experiment this last winter with a bunch of teenagers in our roles as teachers at the Museum of Modern Art. And this class was really a time for us to sort of do all these kind of experiments with a bunch of teenagers that don't know what collaboration is or think they know what collaboration is. And each class, we got together and we tried a different extreme. And here's one project we did. This comes directly from our experiences at Occupy, where we as a group we used consensus methods, hand signals to collectively brainstorm and generate a project for public space.
So show a clip of it.
We'll show a clip. So what's happening here are the students are in the subway,
in public space, and they're going up and down the escalators, and they're kind of doing like a mic check, news, flash. It's sort of, you guys know about the mic check, where you go, mic check, and then everyone goes, mic check, and it's a way of creating a voice together, and so they did that with news flash, and then they were announcing their own headlines, and they were personal headlines that had to do with their own lives. Some of them were silly or ridiculous. But that's what the entire class was them experimenting with kind of a public performance and with consensus. Next. We also did a project with teens where we blindfolded them, and we brought them to Flux Factory, and we left them alone in 2 different groups, kind of abandoning them and seeing what would happen. And it's an interesting experiment because it seems a little bit corrupt to just sort of blindfold kids and leave them without any knowledge of what's going to happen next, but they end up almost always kind of creating a game amongst themselves or creating another kind of sociality that has to do with the fact that they can't see each other, and it becomes this way of them really opening up to each other and exploring another space. So here they are outside Flux Factory in Queens, about to embark on this sort of strange journey.
Yeah, they have no idea where they are. We sort of line them up outside what they think is a construction site, blindfold them, give them some rules. No matter what, do not take off the blindfold, do not stop holding hands, lead them into a strange building and abandon them. And so part of what we're doing with this sort of series of experiments is dealing with both power structures that are extremely laborious and about everyone sort of being equal, like the subway performance you just saw, and taking it to a total different extreme where there are rules, they are blindfolded, they are not supposed to stop holding hands, they have to sort of trust us. And these are all ways of thinking about power. And every one of these experiments ends with the question, who has the most power here? And we discuss. Here's another one. We're just going to show you this video. This was another day where students came in and sort of sat down to an art history lecture. And during that lecture, the class was hijacked by another collective.
Just another day at the museum, sitting down, waiting for the lecture about contemporary art. And right in the middle of the lecture, Doug and I become hypnotized.
You can call me Big Head. And that, on the iPad there, that's Little Head. Introduce yourself, Little Head.
Hi, I'm Little Head. Why don't you tell everyone why we're here, chicken?
You hear the trigger signal.
So you can see this is all, this footage is recorded from Skype. And you see our students there in the background, and the voice here is a mysterious group of actors from what the students thought was another planet.
Perform the role of paranoid conspiracy theorist or half robot or whatever you decide, blah blah blah.
Does anybody have any questions about things?
Are you the leader and when did you start planning?
Yes, Big Head is the leader. We've been planning this for a long, long time.
Do you know what we need to do?
Have to protect our heads from anything getting in it and make extensions of our body.
Thank you for telling me that.
When we build our protective pieces, is the head the most important area to cover?
Now that you are the masters of reactor, it is important that you make those decisions.
So
Maybe you should remove the question.
So here's another way of exploring power. They think that they're having a regular class. We're just going to talk about art, and then the class is hijacked by another collective through Skype. And Doug and I are hypnotized and we become robots for the rest of class, doing whatever these characters on the screen tell us to do. So it's exploring this idea of sort of big brother or an outside kind of power, where the idea of the teacher, the role of the teacher is being displaced and questioned. Let's go on to the next thing. Where did it go? All right.
So in addition to our work as teachers, we also do a lot of other things. And we're just going to show you one project to give you an idea. So this is a piece of public art. It's a giant sculpture that's on a campus somewhere in New York State. We did not make this. An artist named Sofer made it in 1980. But we wanted to hijack this space and reimagine it as not a static artwork, but as a social space. So we constructed some floors inside, covered it in plastic, and then inhabited this space for a month. And during this month, we sort of had a sort of open invitation. Anyone could be there with us. Anyone could use this space. We slept there. That's Kerry. And then people started coming out of town, come out of the school to do things there with us. There's a record club. And part of what for us makes it a really successful project is that things happen that we don't plan or determine. Things happen like this that we don't understand at all. But that there's like a sort of a space created for other possibilities.
So for example, we'd be sleeping there at night. And in the middle of the night, the kids on campus would just show up. And they would just start exploring the space. And it was annoying because it would wake us up because it was our temporary home. But it was also part of the project, that it was open, that it was a space that people came in and explored. And a lot of different things happened there. We had a dance performance, we had public debates and conversations, we had barbecues and picnics, and various kinds of performative actions. And we also did a lot of drawings about, we made a book and we did some drawings about the experience.
As a performance. There were maybe at least 12 of us who were really sort of the core group that did all this. And each one of us sort of identifies as someone who works collectively, but also someone who has their own practice. So everyone was kind of sort of working together to sort of reimagine this artwork, this cultural space, as a different kind of cultural space. But we're also there generating sort of our own work. I was making drawings, Kerry. Should we show some of the video?
Does this make sense, this idea that there's this sculpture on this campus, and that we came and we built this fort inside of it, we wrapped it in plastic, and then used that as a site for other kinds of events? Does that sort of make sense? Can I get wiggles up or down if it makes sense? Okay. Because it's a little confusing what's happening, but... And so this is a video that I made about sort of my personal experience with the project and the sculpture. So it's not exactly a documentation of the show. It's more of like a kind of personal lens through which I was seeing the sculpture, both as like a physical object in the world, like what is this thing? It's steel, it's shiny, it's metal. What is this plastic? Who are these people? What are we doing?
What time is our workshop?
4:30.
15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Do I make them full screen or not? There we go.
What else should we say? Oh, good.
So part of the performance of the sculpture was maintaining it, cleaning it and caring for it. This is our buddy Chuck. So this video also starts to explore these performances that took place of us gathering inside of it and thinking about what it means to be social together. Because if you think about this idea of a public sculpture, something that is available to the public, who is the public? Who is the sculpture for? What is the purpose of that sculpture? And so we want to reimagine this idea of what it means to be a public, or to be a group of people, especially when it's a sculpture that the public around the work of art are not really engaging with. So we made it a very sort of physical intervention. So we only have a couple more minutes actually before our workshop, but we wanted to leave a couple minutes in the end for your thoughts. But also, how many of you in this room have already participated in one of our workshops? Can you twinkle fingers or thumbs up? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Would for those of you guys who have been a part of it, in terms of temperature check, what were your feelings about it? Okay, all positive. Maybe if we weren't here, they'd say otherwise. But that's a good review. I mean, the thing is we didn't design the workshop. Something that I learned a long time ago when I was in school. And that's part of our practice, that we're reimagining things that already exist. We're recycling ideas, we're recycling spaces, we're recycling the idea of what it means to be a community, instead of always having to kind of reinvent the wheel. So we just want to leave a minute for conversation. Do you guys have any questions or thoughts so far? I know we rushed through a few different ideas kind of quickly. Just thoughts or questions?
Can these books be for a group, let's say like Israel versus Palestinians? And you see yourself taking children from Israel, Jews from Israel, and teenagers from Palestinians.
The bridge game. Yeah, I mean, ideally, yes, that's the ideal. There are logistics to the game in that we're always sort of relying on either a translator or a kind of liaison between us and the public. But I think in an ideal world, we would have access to that opportunity. So, in short, yes. Do you want to add to that? Okay. Yeah, good question. Other thoughts or questions? We only got a couple more minutes, and then we're going to go outside and play.
Yeah. So we'll be working with whoever here that's interested, and a group of Boy Scouts under the tent on just over here. You're all invited.
Please join us. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? And
You said you're teachers. What do you teach?
Yeah, we're both teachers. We teach at a few different places. We both teach at the Museum of Modern Art and at colleges and different organizations, and we teach art, but all kinds of art, video, even a kind of like video journalism, drawing, mixed media, social practice, everything, all kinds of art. All right, thanks. And feel free to bug us with more questions later. Thanks for your time.
That's great.